Before 1991, platformers were pretty standard. You had your Marios, your Mega Mans, your Castlevanias, and so on. But then, Sonic the Hedgehog rolls around, and he undoubtedly changed the genre as we know it. He brought so many new mechanics to the table that ended up seeping into other games in the genre. He gave Sega a mascot to rival Mario and made a name for the company. The game sold insanely well and became the killer app for the Genesis. Sonic was cool and had an attitude that other video game characters didn't have. He ended up getting cartoons and toys. Heck, he was even in a Cheerios commercial for some reason. Sonic became one of the most recognizable icons in the 90s. At least, that's what I've gathered. I didn't grow up in the 90s. I wish I did though, but that's besides the point. I was born in 2002, and I didn't start playing video games until 2009. Because of this, I don't have much nostalgia for classic Sonic. So, how about I take a look back at Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and see where it all began. The game starts off in one of the most iconic first levels in video game history, Green Hill Zone. Now, remember when I said Sonic brought a lot of new things to the table? Well, the one major thing Sonic adds is physics, or how the character moves. Sonic 1 is a more speed-focused game. Sort of, you'll see what I mean later. Sonic can gain and lose speed, he can roll into a ball to go even faster, and he can jump with varying height. Nothing about his controls are set in stone, and Green Hill allows the player to see everything Sonic can do. The ground is uneven, there are slopes, loops, and tunnels that force you into a ball that make you go crazy fast. It perfectly teaches the player how the game works through its level design organically. And aside from that, it's a really fun and fast-paced level in its own right. I'm sure you've heard this before, but it really is a perfect Sonic level. And then Marble Zone happens. This zone is such a departure from the design philosophy of Green Hill Zone. It's very slow and kinda boring at times. The layout of Marble Zone is much more linear and confined, and there aren't very many opportunities to gain speed. Green Hill had smoother and curvier level design that let the player gain speed. A Marble Zone, however, is very blocky in comparison, resulting in the slower pace. But the worst part about the stage is how much waiting there is. There's waiting for these spike chandeliers to drop, waiting for these spikes to disappear, and we're waiting on a block to cross over lava. And yeah, Green Hill had some slow areas too, but they didn't feel intrusive. Marble Zone is all slow, and that's a problem. In fact, I'd say that Marble Zone is almost Mario-like in its design. Oh, you know, Mario, the thing that Sonic was meant to compete against. I bet that if you swapped out Sonic from Mario, the level would play out perfectly. Now, don't think I hate Mario level design or anything, but in a Sonic game, it doesn't work well. I don't hate Marble Zone per se, I just think it's mediocre, but it's just crazy how much of a pace breaker this level is. Next up is Springyard Zone, and this level isn't too bad. It's definitely more in line with the design of Green Hill Zone. There's plenty of speed, and lots of places to gain momentum, but there's even a fake Sonic robot in this zone, which I thought was pretty neat. However, Springyard just doesn't have the same flow as Green Hill did. Here, there are many instances where your speed is abruptly halted for some waiting game or slow platforming challenge, and it can be pretty annoying. There's really not much to say about Springyard. It's a good enough zone, and it is a definite step up from Marble Zone, but it's not perfect. Alright, what's next? I hate Labyrinth Zone. It is, bar none, the worst zone in this game. Maybe the worst zone in all of classic Sonic. I'm serious. Labyrinth Zone is a water level, and the water here makes Sonic move very slowly. Okay, who thought this was a good idea? The entire concept of Sonic was built around speed, yet they have that stripped away from him. And it's not like you can avoid the water, the level is filled with it most of the time, so you have to slog through this crap quite often. And due to Sonic's slower and clunkier movement, Trying to avoid certain enemies and obstacles underwater is made way more annoying this time around. I can't stand this zone. It's tedious, it's frustrating, and it's monotonous. I don't get why they thought this was okay. Well, actually, we do have some kind of answer. Sonic's creator Yuji Naka wanted slower levels that allowed the player to, quote, catch their breath. Which, okay, I can kind of understand, but this is not how you do it. Normal speed levels already had slow areas that could do that. If you're gonna have a slower level, then make it fun. Afterwards we have Starlight Zone, and you know what? This zone is great. In fact, I'd say it's on par with Green Hill Zone. It has plenty of speed sections to gain momentum in, and there are some platforming areas also, but they don't feel intrusive at all. In fact, I enjoy them quite a bit. I especially like the seesaw gimmick in the zone. It's pretty fun. The visuals here are pretty great as well. I really like the more peaceful nighttime aesthetic here. It looks really nice. Starlight is definitely one of the better zones in this game. It's not the fastest zone by any means, but it's still a lot of fun. And it goes to show that you can indeed have a good, slower paced Sonic level. But before I talk about Scrap Brain, I want to address the special stages. In order to collect all the Chaos Emeralds to get the good ending, you'll have to complete each special stage. You can enter one by having 50 rings when you reach the goalpost, which is kinda hard to do most of the time, by the way. I really don't like these stages at all. They're confusing, they're hard and headache-inducing chores that really aren't worth completing. I mean, I think the footage speaks for itself. I didn't bother with them. If you want the meaningless good ending, then by all means, go for it. At the end of the game, we're in Scrap Brain Zone. This is supposed to be the big bad final level, and it nails that from an aesthetic standpoint, but the actual zone isn't too hard. Yeah, it's more challenging than the previous zones, but a lot of the obstacles aren't a big deal since you can abuse the ring system and invincibility frames. It's not a particularly fun zone in my opinion, but it's not terrible either. But I really like how each act is distinct. Act 1 is outside a factory, Act 2 is inside the factory, and the third act is underwater. Well, it's honestly not too bad if you take the shortcut, but did we really need another underwater segment? The game ends with a pretty easy boss fight against Dr. Robotnik. In fact, all the fights against him are pretty easy. I guess I'd rather have an easy final boss than something extremely difficult. Well, that's Sonic the Hedgehog 1 for you. And overall, it's just an alright game in my opinion. Now don't get me wrong, it's still fun, but it's also inconsistent. The levels did differ wildly in quality, making for an oddly paced experience. It's the same reason why I don't care for Sonic Adventure 2 all that much. You're constantly going from a fast level to a slow level over and over again, and I just don't like that. Pacing is very important to me when it comes to video games. Yuji Naka said that designing Green Hill took half a year alone, so that means it had the most attention put in than any other zone in the game, and unfortunately, it really shows. Again, I don't think Sonic 1 is bad, and it has held up quite well for what it's worth. It's just, for me, the sequels do everything better, and because of that, I don't go back to Sonic 1 very often. It's certainly a humble start, that's for sure.